So today I've got a few submarine games for you. Isn't that fun? I promise these are the interesting parts. I've definitely cut these out so that you actually see what the gameplay part is like, not all of the waiting. And let me be honest, there's a lot of waiting. But early on in the games I was playing, I often tried to use this strategy of just sending my torps out as soon as I had range on the cap, especially with the Balau with its 2 launcher reload times. It was an interesting way to potentially get an easy first hit on a destroyer that rushes a cap. Our Holland rushed in, and if the enemy destroyer had as well, I could have got a quick ping and potentially landed some good torpedoes on him. That didn't happen, so then we just get to take the B cap for free. This is something that is incredibly strong about these subs. Our Holland just rushed in and YOLO'd. But for myself, there's really no risk in me doing this since I can just dive. The Holland doesn't even have a smoke. So it's very, very, very risky for him. But I think that's one of the big issues here is there's not a lot of risk in playing these aggressive positions. And especially now with how tanky it feels like these submarines are, it's very difficult to die unless you go all the way in super hard and get yourself surrounded. Even then, I've found it's very difficult to die. Of course, another strategy to deal with destroyers is send some torpedoes towards their smoke and then blind hit a ping. I'm laughing, but this guy, I guarantee you, was a little bit frustrated with that. I know I would be. That's an easy 6,000 damage. Now, moving forward, we did force the Elbing out, and he does spot us. So he knows we're here. He knows we're caught bow in. I'm assuming he's going to want to go aggressive. He hasn't really seen much of my teammates around, so I just preemptively launch some torps for him and turn away. I'm really not scared here. It's shocking, actually. This ship, the Elbing, the destroyer, should be a pretty terrifying threat for me, and yet I'm really not afraid. I can just dive and run away. It's so easy. And in fact, our preemptive torps landed 1. So that's 13k into this Elbing so far. And now that we know he's used his damage control, since our damage numbers aren't ticking up, and we did land a flood there, he can't repair this ping. So we get ourselves a couple pings on target, not even a double ping, and we land another torp. And guess what? This one's flooding. So we do have an enemy submarine to deal with. He did land a couple pings on ourselves, but a quick repair and we'll be out of the way of those torps in no time. Getting one last ping in, and this is a double ping. Look at how long this timer is. 75 seconds. So those 2 torpedoes on the way are pretty much guaranteed to hit this poor Elbing, since I don't believe his damage con is going to be up in time. And sure enough, we actually land 2 more torps. So we've done 30,000 damage to that poor Elbing so far. We are locked on though. Unfortunately, our own damage control isn't available, and the Balau gets another 2 torps into us. But a quick dive, emergency use of our consumables to make us a little more maneuverable, and we barely avoid them. But honestly, it's not a huge deal. I found that sub versus sub combat is this weird game of just laser tag. The torps don't really do a lot of damage. You'll see here we actually do manage to hit one, and it's only around 4,000 damage, which isn't great. The idea behind sub versus sub combat, in my mind, really is about spotting each other and your teammates doing the damage to one another. So unfortunately, our second one will miss. But these pings underwater certainly do look a little bit like slow lasers. It's a weird combat style. It was interesting only because I hadn't really done much of it. I think over time, the sub versus sub combat will get pretty boring. As far as the subs versus battleships, well, it's just free. This is the most free gameplay experience you're ever going to get. This is the turn it on easy mode in Doom Eternal and just wreck face. Like, that's what this is here. There's really no danger at all. The only danger is that the enemy battleships die before my torps get there. I'm actually really not going to do much damage at all here, since these enemy battleships are going to die that quickly. I think that's really the unfortunate side of these subs. The gameplay loop is relatively easy, and unfortunately, it also means it's hard to get big damage scores unless you're very, very aggressive or get some pretty lucky games. I found myself often stonewalled by some destroyers or the enemy submarines, not able to get to the back lines like I want to be right here. Like, this damage is so simple to get. As I'm missing my pings, let's just ignore that and move on. It's very easy damage to get, but it always happens right at the end. And you notice the Prince Ruprecht is going to go down here. The enemy team is going to tick out on points. So I don't really have high damage games, and yet it's not a lot of fun, and there's not really a lot of interesting mechanics here. So nothing's really changed in that respect from the old subtests. My conclusion from that has largely stayed the same, outside of, well, these new ones are a little harder to take down, which is certainly disappointing for a surface ship. Especially if you're in an Elbing and you lose almost all your health to a single submarine. That is demoralizing. So I think I'm going to have to figure out a way to deal with these subs in my destroyers. I haven't played a lot of DDs against subs yet, but it certainly does feel very one-sided in these engagements. Something else I found about subs is a lot of these very well-contested caps, the C cap on this map and the D cap on North, is very tough to get. This choke point is such a stalemate for most of the games that I've played on these maps that a lot of the time it's tough to even take these caps. But early game, no problem. I'll just YOLO in with my sub and hopefully take the cap above water. I'm using the island, of course, on my right to block some spotting from the enemy destroyers, and I get a cap very, very easily. To me, it's a little shocking how easy it is to play these objectives, how little risk I find in playing the objective like this. I'm not really much of a history professional or knowledgeable very well about especially naval history, but I do feel like when a submarine is around enemy ships, the goal really is to stay undetected as much as possible and not show yourself very easily to the enemy. I could be wrong. You could very well correct me in the comments down below, but it seems a little bit risky to be just full charging into capture zones like this without a care in the world. It seems a little bit counterintuitive to me, at least in terms of what I know of submarines, and that when they do get hit, they tend to die very quickly. They want to avoid taking hits, as far as I know. But here, I am undetected. I'm playing at periscope depth here, so I've got a very small concealment circle. But it still feels a little odd how easy I find it to just send it into caps. That's essentially my start of every match I'm playing. I'm just going to head straight for the cap and hopefully spot some stuff. And then if I do, maybe dive and run away, and, well, or I'll take a cap for free, like I have in these last two games. You'll notice smoke screens are some of the easiest targets for submarines. These very slow stationary ships are very, very, very easy to kill. And assuming you're decent with your predictions, these blind fire pings are not hard to get at all. So we've already landed 4 torps on this poor Harbin. I guess that's, yeah, the tier 8 from the new Pan Asian line. If you watch my videos as I grinded my way through this ship, and you'll know I hated the Harbin. So this is what suffering looks like. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. This poor Harbin player. I'm sorry. I've been there, man. Harbin is really, really, really rough. But yeah, submarines just make it that much harder. This poor guy got killed through no fault of his own, really. He just used his smoke, played aggressive, tried to get close to the cap, try and even be in range to shoot, and a submarine just pinged him through his smoke and killed him outright. It's a little ridiculous, in my opinion, still, just how unfair this is. It's at the same time as it's boring to play and boring to play against, it's also unfair. It feels very unfair from the surface ship perspective, and I don't really know what to change that. This current iteration, it's very frustrating. You know, this poor Stalingrad is behind an island from me. He knows where I am. I've been spotted. He knows I'm behind an island, and yet these torps, I curved around that island, and since I had a double ping, well, that's an 80-second homing timer. This poor guy takes 20k, and he actually goes down to my team. Fast forwarding this last little bit, I thought this was a hilarious clip. This poor Hindenburg. He's dodging all of my team. Like, the game is over at this point, but at the same time of trying to dodge all of my teammates, it's ping, 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 ping in the background. It's just constant, never-ending homing torps for this poor guy. And oh, he damage conned it. Okay, well, let's decide to send more torps out and ping, ping, ping away again. I'm not actually going to get any damage here, but for the Hindenburg player, I think we can all agree he wasn't having the best experience there. I don't think that is a particularly enjoyable experience. He was going to die anyway without me there, but those extra pings can get very, very frustrating. And I'm speaking from experience. I've been in that spot as a surface ship player, trying to avoid all the other surface ship combat that you're engaged with. And then there's something you can't really deal with constantly just poking at you from the background. Of course, if a battleship decides to push, well, that's the easiest target in the world. So this Yamato is going to be forced to turn out here. He actually dumps his anti-submarine warfare very quickly. I think these new pings are a way to bait or trap enemy battleships into using their anti-submarine warfare. It's really not good to blind fire these, since most DDs most submarines aren't just going to be sitting stationary. You'll notice how badly his anti-submarine warfare missed me by. He used his damage control right away, which actually worked out for him. I wasn't able to re-ping him for those initial set of torps. But the Balau is one of those spin-to-win style ships where there's torps front and back, constantly reloading. And, well, we get them with the second set here. And this is what I'm talking about when I say these ships are just a little bit too tanky and able to withstand very dangerous positions for too long. I am bow in, forcing myself closer to a Småland, a Balau, surrounded by ships like a Hindenburg, Elbing, Kurfürst, Yamato, and my team is all gone. This is a really bad position. It's time for me to turn away. But surprise, surprise, I do manage to get away with basically all of my health intact. I just ran away and kept these guys spotted for the most part. That was really my goal here. You'll notice I'm stirring in here. I'm ready to turn away and, well, get away very quickly. And since I outspot the Elbing, I outspot the DD, I can just sit on the surface and constantly spot this guy. These DDs that are seemingly requiring themselves to play around concealment, since they don't have a heal. They don't have the ability to dive underwater and become essentially immune to damage and spotting. They don't have that luxury. So this guy is forced to smoke up here, and it doesn't feel very fair from that surface ship perspective. I think that's the main thing to consider here that I have noticed a lot with these submarines is the counterplay. What it feels like to play against these things is it feels unfair. Doesn't feel like a balanced PvP experience. And as far as playing the subs go, well, if I show you 3 games in the course of, well, around 10 minutes, there's some action here. There's some decent, tense fights and experiences, but even then, it's really just me beating up on people. This poor Elbing takes 4 torps in his smoke after I got another double ping. And of course, because he ate all those torps, he wanted to damage con. And when he comes out of his smoke, I'm ready to spot him again. And I can just dive underwater like this to avoid damage. After I get my guaranteed ping, my torps are on the way already. What's a destroyer player to do other than run away? I don't think that's a very valid way to counterplay these. That doesn't seem like gameplay to me. So, unfortunately, I haven't had insane damage games. But they've all been games that I think showcase how annoying these submarines can be. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. And thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day.